Welcome back to Fuller Speed Ahead. This week, we're continuing the interview with my father, Max Fuller, about our family's history in the trucking industry. So Clyde's technically in jail, but he's not spending any time in the jail, right?
Right.
Now, does he have to check in at night?
He's supposed to check in at night, and I think he did, but I'm not sure he really slept there.
Okay, so he's got the dude, he's paying off,
Right.
the sheriff's deputy, driving around town. He's been in jail. And the state senator that is your mother's attorney, he just punched out or has punched out at some point. Obviously not well liked. Is there some retribution coming from the government at this point towards Clyde?
No, basically just
the media. The media loves the story because
they do.
You got this hillbilly cowboy trucker named Clyde, big old drink of water, that has just punched out the attorney who's a state senator. Of course, the newspapers love this.
Well, and it's headlines. It was headlines, it happened, and that didn't help his situation in the divorce, and that just added that much more length to the whole process.
Okay, so you're a young boy, and then Clyde's got this. He's got a trucking company that's hauling chickens up in Athens, hauling freight. He's got this shippers co-op thing that is technically illegal. Or at some point,
it was determined illegal.
Gray. It's a gray area.
It's a gray area.
It's an uncontested area, and this actually happens in a lot of businesses where, until someone contests it, it's technically not approved, but until it goes to court, nobody knows whether it's legal.
Right.
It's a technicality in the law. At some point, it becomes illegal. Like at some point, court says...
Once the court determined that it was illegal, then it's illegal.
So he shut down... Up to that
point is a gray area.
He shut down overnight.
Right.
But he's still got this trucking company called Athens Express, right? But he's getting divorced. Tell me what happens with Athens Express.
Okay, well, Athens Express had some pretty good equity in it. And so my dad goes down to the local banker, which he's very close with, and leverages up Athens Express.
Borrows a bunch of money.
Okay, borrows every penny he can borrow. So he puts that company in debt. And through the divorce process, my mom didn't know that he had leveraged the company up. So in the divorce process, she gets Athens Express. Well, guess what? She just ended up with a lot of debt.
So she thinks she's about to get this great business that's making money and it's going to support her and you and your sisters. You guys are going to be okay because she's got a lifestyle. She's running this business. Clyde's down in Dalton doing whatever with whomever. Doesn't matter, but she's in charge. She just inherited this business or has been awarded this business to the divorce settlement. And what she doesn't realize is that it's not a gift, it's a curse because he just levered the hell out of this business.
Right.
What is that like?
Well, it was really tough for my mom through the process because she ended up paying the bank off.
Did she actually make it work?
She made it work, but then it was to the point to where there wasn't enough money once she's having to pay the bank to really keep the company busy. So she basically became a shipping agent for another trucking company.
So she's struggling. And she decides that, hey, running a company as a single mother at this point.
And loaded with debt.
Doesn't make sense. I'm going to pay off the bank. I'm going to shut down my company, sell off the trucks. Because I imagine these days, it's not like today, these trucks do have a little bit more value.
Right.
They held their value better. And now she's become an agent on behalf of another trucking company?
A trucking company out of Virginia.
Okay.
So she's a shipper's agent. So she had customers there in the Athens area that she basically represented them. So she basically took her business, gave it to them in return for being an agent. So she got a commission off of that.
Got it. So she's getting paid because she's bringing business to this carrier. Does this carrier have ICC authority on the lanes?
Yes.
Okay. And so it's running a legit shop.
It is.
It is a legal and compliant shop. She's probably seen every trick that Clyde has pulled and decides that she wants nothing to do with that. She's going to run a legit shop.
She want to be totally legitimate.
Now, did you help out in the business?
Yeah. I had to run documents back and forth. She had to fill out the freight manifest with all the stuff on the trailer. was part of her job, and ended up doing that quite a bit.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 12, 13 years old.
Okay. So Clyde, meanwhile, so you're helping your mother, you're learning the ropes of the trucking business.
Right.
Clyde is down, he's got a new wife. He's got a divorce. Is this Southwest Motor Freight has arrived yet or no?
No.
Okay. So is the co-op going on at the same time as the divorce, or is already shuttered?
No, the co-op was going on about the same time, and then about the time the divorce happened was about the time the co-op basically got shut down.
Okay, so co-op gets shut down, and then what does Clyde do? He runs a leasing company, right? With drivers.
He creates a company called Chattanooga Leasing, where he is leasing equipment to those same shippers they had before. And the technicality back then was that you could lease equipment, but you couldn't lease the drivers from the same company. So they technically, the shippers ended up hiring the drivers, and they actually paid the drivers, so it passed the smell test. But my dad was the one that really hired them and managed them.
Okay, so if I'm a shipper and I've got freight, the driver's working for me, how do I reconcile with the other shippers in terms of that driver's not hauling my load, but he's hauling another load for another company?
Are you talking about backhauls?
Yeah, no, just okay. If I'm a carpet hauler and I've aggregated my freight with other carpet, I'm a carpet shipper.
He would take say 15 trucks, and that would be for that one company only.
Okay, so they're dedicated.
So they really are dedicated.
They're truly dedicated.
Well, they had to pass the smell test, and the smell test was that it had to be a bona fide lease with that shipper. It had to be under their control, and the leasing company technically couldn't hire the driver, but the carpet mill could. So they ended up hiring the drivers, even though my dad basically brought the drivers and said, "This, sign this form, and you're working for such."
It's like a dedicated truck operation.
Well,
the only technicality is the driver's working for the shipper. Okay.
So that was a technicality. Through the process, when I went to work for him in the early 70s, I ended up working for a company called Bourbon Rug Mills out of Fresno, California. I was their East Coast traffic manager.
Okay, so you're in charge of freight.
At probably age 16 or 17.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about the backhaul process. Now, in these days, freight brokerage, as we know it today, is not legal. But there is some level of, what is the process for finding backhaul?
Well, what he would do was we would usually haul cotton from the West Coast back into the Carolinas, or maybe even North Georgia. And that was the big backhaul, especially when cotton was running. When cotton wasn't running, then there's other commodities.
How did he have to file a permit?
Those were exempt.
Why were they exempt? Because they're agriculture?
Right.
So agricultural freight has never been subject to the ICC because farmers run this country.
That's right.
And so agriculture commodities are exempt. So he's allowed to go find as much agricultural freight as he can get his hands on, but he's not allowed to haul anything else without authority that's manufactured.
Right.
Okay, got it. So he's found some agriculture commodities, cotton coming in. He's hauling freight to North Carolina, truck deadheads to Dalton, and then hauls carpet out to the West Coast.
Right.
And off we go, right?
Right.
That kind of how the way to think of it?
Yeah, and then keep in mind, about that time was when the interstate system was being created.
Yep.
So he's one of the first people to put two guys in a truck and run them all the way to the West Coast.
Now, was there any hours of service rules in those days?
There was hours of service rules. And that's the reason he put two drivers in the truck instead of a solo.
Then in this day, at this point, the government, was this a gray area thing again?
Which part?
In terms of having two drivers in a truck?
No.
Okay, so it was allowed. You're allowed to have two
legal.
drivers in a truck. Okay. So he's hauling team, running carpet.
You just didn't have many sleeper trucks.
Okay.
And a lot of people felt like, a 2 and 3 day run was too much. So you really didn't have a lot of teams. My dad was one of the pioneers in team operations.
Where did the drivers sleep?
Well, he ended up buying trucks at sleepers.
Oh, he got some sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep in mind, a lot of this stuff evolved over time. So they came up with the sleeper trucks probably somewhere in the late 50s, early 60s, but it really didn't really take off until the mid to late 60s.
Got it. Okay. So we've got our trucking company. We're hauling a combination of agriculture, a combination of carpet. 1970s, trucking's good in these days, right?
Trucking is good, and he was growing pretty fast.
How many trucks at this point does he have?
I'm going to guess about 50.
Okay. There was a limit, right, on how many trucks you could own?
No.
I thought there was a limit.
There was a limit
trucks.
on how many trucking companies you could own.
Okay.
Or a limit on how many contracts you could have.
So, okay, if I had a big shipper, I could have 500 trucks. But if I had...
You could, but that wasn't common.
Okay. Because, even today, private.
Keep in mind, unless you were a big LTL, most trucking companies are very small.
Okay.
100 trucks or less.
There was a limit to how many contracts I could have. And I could only own, one trucking company?
Well, to keep you limited to one trucking company.
Okay.
Okay, so to kind of fill in the story, Chattanooga Leasing, my dad was pretty successful with that. He decided he wanted to get authority. The ICC commissioner in the state of Tennessee basically kept refusing to give him authority because of the co-op days. So my dad ends up finding a trucking company in Lenore City called Wilkerson Trucking. So he ends up buying it. Okay, so that gives him authority, but the authority is only good for going from the East Coast east going west.
Now, to be clear, are these authorities specific to regions? Are they specific to lanes?
Certain customers, certain products.
Okay, but was I limited to
lanes.
what cities I could go to?
You were limited.
And they would define the limitations based on like a state or a region or a city? How were they limited?
Well, it's usually a customer or a commodity or origin and destination.
So could it be that if I'm hauling out of Chattanooga that I could not haul out of Athens?
That's true.
Okay, got it. So it's pretty restrictive.
Pretty restrictive.
Which meant there is no volatility in freight because shippers didn't want to go through this process of finding new and truckers didn't want to go through a process of finding new. The rates are fixed, right?
The rates are fixed. You had to file your rates with the Interstate Commerce Commission, and then if they were too low, they would say, no, you got to charge this. If they were too high, they'd say, no, you got to charge this.
They decided what you should make.
They controlled the profit margins that you could make. So,
it's got to be a great business.
Well,
it's like the beer distributorships. If you own a region for beer distributorship, they only do one. And these things print money.
Right.
I got to imagine it's a great business. Okay, so they're very restrictive. You file. How do you lose freight? Like, what's the process of losing freight in those days if you're a trucking company? I mean, today, shipper can call you up because you had a service failure. They got a better price. Those days, it didn't work that way, right?
Well, it didn't work that way, but it did.
Okay.
Because they had a bunch of these small guys that were either co-ops, that's where the competition was.
Okay.
The big LTLs that would fight you with the ICC weren't the people that were hauling that freight.
Got it. So you could lose freight, but it'd be to a co-op. So let's say that you had a shipper and then all of a sudden they decided to join a co-op, you could lose that business. Okay, got it. So we've got a situation here. We got Clyde's got his company's bought a company up in Lenore. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Okay, well, it basically had authority to haul, and I think...
Now, he has a trucking company, right?
He has a trucking...
What's the name of that?
Well, it's Chattanooga Leasing.
Chattanooga Leasing. He's a leasing company.
And so I ended up running Chattanooga Leasing, and he ended up going to Lenore City to run...
and the leasing company is leasing on drivers to the shippers.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And he buys a registered trucking company that
First
has
time he could get authority
by buying it. He couldn't
by
get
buying it.
Why was he not qualified for authority before?
Because the commissioner in the state of Tennessee didn't like him because of the co-op.
Co-op. Okay, so there's this reputation problem.
Right.
He finds a back door by buying a company. Tell us about this.
Well, and this company basically had authority to haul appliances to Southern California. So
and you were only allowed to haul certain commodities under your...
Certain commodities to a certain point, from a certain point.
Okay, so really
And
strict.
maybe even, they may even name the company. You know, this company had, the authority was broad enough to where it didn't name the company, but it was appliances. So that kind of opened up a big world for him. But you could only haul from places, and I can't remember exactly, but say from the southeast going into Southern California. Okay, so he'd make a lot of money going that direction, but he really needed freight coming back, you know, because we're having to haul exempt stuff like the leasing company was. And, you know, there's a period of time there where we couldn't get enough of it.
And agriculture being exempt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he ended up finding a company called Southwest Motor Freight.
He's just trying to find an authority to buy.
It's like a puzzle. You got to put the pieces together.
Okay.
So he found authority, a company that was just granted authority like a week before, called Southwest Motor Freight. It never operated before, but my dad ended up going in and bought. He technically didn't buy it. I bought the company.
So you are, the name Southwest Motor Freight is in your name because he owns this Wilkinson Trucking Company? Wilkerson up in Virginia.
Lenore, Tennessee.
I'm sorry, Lenore, Tennessee, but has operating authority out of Virginia. You are now registered. How old are you at this point?
About 17.
You're 17 buying Southwest Motor Freight, but it's really, you're nothing but a front man for this business because he couldn't own two trucking
It met the technicality.
And at 17, it was legal?
Well, I guess, because it happened.
Got it. Okay. So you're now you're the registered agent owner, whatever, of Southwest Motor Freight.
Right. And then the company, because then we had authority going east and we had authority going west. We ended up growing relatively fast.
Could you match the trucks between one another? Or?
Well, we did by doing a lease over to the other company.
Okay, so Chattanooga Leasing is leasing on trucks to both companies, right?
Right.
Okay, so the trucks are leased on to these operating entities.
Right.
That then are using freight under their operating authority.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay.
So going west, it would be under Wilkinson. Coming back east, it'd be under Southwest Motor Freight.
Got it. Now, did you have to change the plates?
You had to put a door sign on.
A door. So literally moving door sign. This has been this rampant freight fraud that's happening. You guys were like the OGs.
Well,
you might as well just be based in Glendale, California, Dad.
Well, we could have been based anywhere.
People that know freight brokerage would know the Glendale gym. Okay, so you've got this business and you're basically changing your door plates, your door signs as you go because you're operating on a new authority. Business is good. Brokerage is not legal at this point, except for agriculture.
Agriculture is only.
You could haul ag through freight brokerage. Right. It's a cottage industry, but it wasn't a big part of it. And if I wanted to find a backhaul in a market that I didn't have authority, I couldn't do that unless it was an agriculture, right?
Right.
So getting this authority out of California allows you guys to build a network at this point.
We can build a network and we can grow.
Okay, so we're in the 1970s.
Right.
Tell us what that's like.
Well, during that period of time, it was very fast growth. And then once my dad got authority, he could get more authority. Southwest Motor Freight was under California jurisdiction, and they didn't have the problem with my dad. So we were able to add more authority under the California ICC.
Because every state basically has an ICC agent?
I think it's regions.
Okay.
It just happened to be a Tennessee region that happened to be a California region.
Got it. So he's able to get new authorities all over the country, and he's just filing. And was there like shell authorities, companies that created shell companies?
That's what he was doing.
So Southwest Motor Freight was a shell company.
It was a shell company to get authority, and then their deal was to sell it. There's a lot of people doing the same thing.
Just a whole bunch of lawyers that file the work and sell it?
Well, they figured out that, the system was really screwed up and they could game it. So that's what they were doing. And my dad would go shopping for these shell companies to that had authority to do so-and-so. So he's putting a puzzle together.
Love it. Okay, so your dad's got this business, is buying authorities, starting to run, starting to grow. Where are we at in terms of timeline? Is the mid-70s?
We're probably, I'd say 75, 76.
Okay.
That range. We're growing very fast. And then we get a call from the ICC commissioner out of Southern California. He wants to meet the 17-year-old kid
that running this truck. How many trucks do you guys at this point?
We're probably up to 50 to 70, maybe in that range.
Okay, and this is 17-year-old kid's you.
Yeah, so I get summons to Southern California. Of course, my dad goes with me. So, we're sitting there and I'm being interrogated, to see if I know the business.
Oh, wait, did you guys fly in those days?
Yeah.
Were you flying on an airplane? Okay.
Yeah, we flew and got to stay at the Beverly Hilton. So
oh man, you're high dollar at this point.
I thought, boy, this is really neat. So
trucking, you can make some money as a trucking.
Yeah, but through the interrogation process, the guy was asking a lot of questions, and since I'd been involved in the leasing company, I kind of knew what was going on. I could see what I was actually dispatching trucks in some cases for Wilkerson, some cases for Southwest Motor Freight. Kind of depend on where and when and whatever. So I knew enough to kind of pass the smell test. At the end of the meeting, Commissioner Yellowitz basically looks at me. He kind of goes across the desk like this and said, "Son, I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm going to let you buy this, but if you do anything illegal, I'm going to be your worst enemy." And I committed I would do things legal. And that kind of set my career going forward.
Now, did your heart drop when he said it? Were you like, oh my God?
I thought I was getting ready to get in big time trouble.
Okay. So you've got this, you guys are sort of in this gray area skirting the law. You know that I imagine going to this meeting, your dad's just coaching you up. Like, don't say anything stupid.
Well, I think he had the confidence that I knew enough about the business.
Okay.
I probably didn't know enough about the law, but because it always worked for him.
Thank you for listening to Fuller Speed Ahead. Check back next week for part 3 of our interview with my father, US Express founder Max Fuller, about his personal history in the trucking industry. Stay tuned.